Ambassador Kelthan sat in his luxurious chair aboard the massive Vorthok command ship, reviewing the latest intelligence reports about Earth. The blue-green planet looked so peaceful from space, its single moon and primitive orbital stations. He couldn't help but smile as he read about human technology. Their rockets still used chemical fuel, like something from the ancient archives of civilized worlds. Their weapons fired simple metal bullets instead of energy beams. It was almost adorable how backward they were. "Look at this," Kelthan said to his fellow council members, projecting images of human military equipment. "They still use ground vehicles with wheels. Their fastest ships take months to reach their own outer planets, could travel their entire solar system in a few hours." The other ambassadors chuckled. The Vorthok Empire had been expanding across the galaxy for 3 centuries. Every species they encountered either surrendered immediately or was crushed within days. Their energy weapons could slice through any known metal. Their shields could deflect anything weaker than a star's core. They had conquered 17 different star systems, each one falling faster than the last. "These humans will be even easier than the Centaurians," declared Ambassador Velenoth. "At least the Centaurians had plasma weapons. These primitives are still throwing rocks at each other." Meanwhile, on Earth's moon, Captain Hyenwoo Park stood in a control room that officially didn't exist. The lunar facility was buried deep beneath the surface, invisible to any scanning technology the galaxy had seen before. Banks of monitors showed every ship in the Vorthok fleet, their positions tracked by sensors they couldn't detect. The holographic message arrived exactly as Earth's intelligence network had predicted. Kelthan's image appeared in the center of the room, his alien features twisted into what humans recognized as contempt. His voice carried the tone of an adult speaking to a stubborn child. "People of Earth," the message began, "the Vorthok Empire has decided to bring your world into our glorious civilization. You will surrender all military assets, provide tribute of 70% of your resources, and accept our governance. You have 72 hours to comply. Resistance will result in your complete destruction." Captain Hyenwoo Park listened to the entire message without changing expression. He had been expecting this moment for over a decade. Earth's hidden defense. Networks had been preparing for exactly this scenario. When the message ended, he walked to the communication console and activated the response system. "The Vorthok Empire," he said calmly into the recorder. "Earth appreciates your offer, but must respectfully decline. We prefer to remain independent. We hope this can be resolved peacefully." The message was simple, polite, and completely honest. It was also exactly what Earth's military strategists wanted to convey. Let the enemy think humans were naive and unprepared. Admiral Minikim watched the transmission from her command center, surrounded by tactical displays showing the true extent of Earth's defenses. Hidden weapon platforms disguised as communication satellites, military bases built inside asteroids, ship manufacturing facilities that had been running at full capacity for 20 years, all carefully concealed from alien observation. "They think we're weak because we choose diplomacy first," she said to her staff. "They're about to learn that. Humans save our strength for when it really matters." Back on the Vorthok flagship, the response message caused an explosion of laughter. The assembled council members couldn't believe what they were hearing. A primitive species was actually refusing their generous offer of servitude. "Did they just say no to us?" asked Ambassador Yethril, wiping tears from his eyes. "That hasn't even left their own solar system thinks they can defy the Vorthok Empire." "This is perfect," Kelthan replied. "We'll make an example of them. When other species see what happens to those who refuse our offer, future conquests will be even easier." The 1,000-ship armada began moving toward Earth, confident in their overwhelming superiority. None of them noticed the small objects that had been quietly following their fleet since they entered the solar system. Objects that looked like space debris but were actually the most advanced reconnaissance drones humanity had ever built. The war was about to begin, and only one side knew what was really coming. Ambassador Kelthan sat in his luxurious chair aboard the massive Vorthok command ship. Reviewing the latest intelligence reports about Earth, the blue-green planet looked so peaceful from space, with with its single moon and primitive orbital stations. He couldn't help but smile as he read about human technology. Their rockets still used chemical fuel, like something from the ancient archives of civilized worlds. Their weapons fired simple metal bullets instead of energy beams. It was almost adorable how backward they were. "Look at this," Kelthon said to his fellow council members, projecting images of human military equipment. "They still use ground vehicles with wheels. Their fastest ships take months to reach their own outer planets, could travel their entire solar system in a few hours." The other ambassadors chuckled. The Vorthok Empire had been expanding across the galaxy for 3 centuries. Every species they encountered either surrendered immediately or was crushed within days. Their energy weapons could slice through any known metal. Their shields could deflect anything weaker than a star's core. They had conquered 17 different star systems, each one falling faster than the last. "These humans will be even easier than the Centaurians," declared Ambassador Velenoth. "At least the Centaurians had plasma weapons. These primitives are still throwing rocks at each other." Meanwhile, on Earth's moon, Captain Hyanwu Park stood in a control room that officially didn't exist. The lunar facility was buried deep beneath the surface, invisible to any scanning technology the galaxy had seen before. Banks of monitors showed every ship in the Vorthok fleet, their positions tracked by sensors they couldn't detect. The holographic message arrived exactly as Earth's intelligence network had predicted. Kelthon's image appeared in the center of the room, his alien features twisted into what humans recognized as contempt. His voice carried the tone of an adult speaking to a stubborn child. "People of Earth," the message began, "the Vorthok Empire has decided to bring your world into our glorious civilization. You will surrender all military assets, provide tribute of 70% of your resources, and accept our governance. You have 72 hours to comply. Resistance will result in your complete destruction." Captain Hyanwu Park listened to the entire message without changing expression. He had been expecting this moment for over a decade. Earth's hidden defense. Networks had been preparing for exactly this scenario. When the message ended, he walked to the communication console and activated the response system. To the Vorthok Empire, he said calmly into the recorder, "Earth appreciates your offer, but must respectfully decline. We prefer to remain independent. I hope this can be resolved peacefully." The message was simple, polite, and completely honest. It was also exactly what Earth's military strategists wanted to convey. Let the enemy think humans were naive and unprepared. Admiral Mina Kim watched the transmission from her command center, surrounded by tactical displays showing the true extent of Earth's defenses. Hidden weapon platforms disguised as communication satellites. Military bases built inside asteroids. Ship manufacturing facilities that had been running at full capacity for 20 years. All carefully concealed from alien observation. "They think we're weak because we choose diplomacy first," she said to her staff. "They're about to learn that humans save our strength for when it really matters." Back on the Vorthok flagship, the response message caused an explosion of laughter. The assembled council members couldn't believe what they were hearing. A primitive species was actually refusing their generous offer of servitude. "Did they just say no to us?" asked Ambassador Yethril, wiping tears from his eyes. "A species that hasn't even left their own solar system thinks they can defy the Vorthok Empire? This is perfect," Kelthon replied. "We'll make an example of them. When other species see what happens to those who refuse our offer, future conquests will be even easier." The 1,000-ship armada began moving toward Earth, confident in their overwhelming superiority. None of them noticed the small objects that had been quietly following their fleet since they entered the solar system. Objects that looked like space debris, but were actually the most advanced reconnaissance drones humanity had ever built. The war was about to begin, and only one side knew what was really coming. The Vorthok fleet dropped out of hyperspace with the confidence of predators, approaching helpless prey. Commander Lexvin stood on the bridge of his battlecruiser, watching Earth grow larger on the main screen. The planet looked exactly as their intelligence reports had described, a single blue world with primitive orbital stations and slow-moving cargo ships. "Begin the approach," Lexvin ordered his crew. Standard intimidation formation. Once they see our full fleet, they'll surrender without firing a shot. The 1,000 ships spread out in perfect military precision, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. Each vessel was a masterpiece of Vorthok engineering, equipped with weapons that could crack planets and shields that had never been breached. This would be the easiest conquest in their empire's history. That's when the asteroids started moving. What the Vorthok had dismissed as space rocks suddenly lit up with energy signatures. Hidden panels slid away, revealing massive cannon barrels that had been disguised as natural formations. The asteroid belt that surrounded Earth's outer planets wasn't just a collection of floating debris, it was the largest weapons platform ever constructed. "What in the void is that?" Thexfin shouted as his sensors went crazy. Hundreds of objects that should have been dead stone were powering up weapon systems more advanced than anything in the Vorthok database. Lieutenant Jamin Lee sat in the cockpit of his fighter, hidden inside what looked like a broken piece of space station. He had been waiting in this position for 6 hours, watching the enemy fleet approach through his targeting system. When the signal came, he smiled grimly and fired up his engines. "Phoenix Squadron, this is Phoenix 1, he transmitted to his team. "Remember what they taught us in training. Speed is life, and today we prove that humans don't back down from anyone." His fighter shot out of its hiding place like a missile, followed by dozens of others that had been concealed throughout the asteroid field. These weren't the slow, clumsy ships the Vorthok expected. These were cutting-edge interceptors built specifically for this moment, powered by engines that pushed the limits of human engineering. The first wave of attacks hit the Vorthok fleet. Before they could even raise their shields, Jamin's fighter screamed past the enemy flagship, its weapons tearing into the sensor array with precision strikes. The Vorthok had never faced pilots who could think and react this quickly. "Target their communication systems," Jamin called out as he pulled his fighter into an impossible turn. "Make them blind and deaf before they can coordinate a response." Battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships darted between the massive Vorthok vessels like angry hornets, too fast and too small to target effectively. When the aliens tried to use their superior firepower, the humans simply disappeared into the asteroid field, using the environment as cover. But the most shocking moment came when the Vorthok realized what the humans were actually using as weapons. Those weren't military ships at all. They were mining vessels, cargo haulers, and industrial equipment that had been modified for combat. The humans had taken their everyday tools and turned them into instruments of war. "They're using a mining laser to cut through our hull," reported one panicked Vorthok officer. "And that ship ramming our port side? It's a garbage scow." Subcommander Veltar couldn't believe what he was seeing on his tactical display. A human cargo ship had just deliberately crashed into one of their cruisers, detonating its entire cargo hold in a massive explosion. The crew had sacrificed themselves just to take down one enemy vessel. "Sir, this is insane," Veltar reported to Commander Thexfin. "They're not following any known rules of warfare. They're using suicide attacks, ramming maneuvers, and improvised weapons. It's completely barbaric." Captain Heinwu's voice suddenly crackled over the communication system, speaking in perfect Vorthok language. "Commander Thexfin, this is Captain Park of the Earth Defense Force. You came here expecting an easy victory against a primitive species. You were wrong. The transmission was being broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring every Vorthok ship could hear it. You think we're barbaric because we don't fight like you expect? But let me explain something about humans. We don't just adapt to survive. We adapt to win." When the 18-minute engagement finally ended, 12 Vorthok cruisers were nothing more than twisted metal floating in space. The rest of the fleet had pulled back in confusion and fear, unable to comprehend what had just happened. For the first time in their empire's history, the Vorthok had been defeated by a supposedly inferior species. And this was just the beginning. News traveled faster than any spacecraft ever built. Within 3 hours of the first battle, emergency broadcasts were reaching every corner of Earth. People stopped what they were doing and gathered around screens in Times Square, Seoul's city center, and countless other locations around the globe. The message was simple, but earth-shattering. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. The aliens had fired first. President Soojin Park stood before the United Nations Emergency Assembly, her face grave but determined. Representatives from every nation filled the hall, their usual political differences forgotten in the face of an existential threat. "Today we are not Americans, Chinese, Europeans, or Africans," she declared. "Today we are all human beings, and we will defend our home together." The transformation began immediately. In Detroit, automobile factories shut down their production lines and retooled for military hardware within hours. Workers who had been building cars that morning were assembling fighter jets by evening. In South Korea, electronics manufacturers stopped making phones and started producing advanced targeting systems. Every industrial facility on Earth suddenly had one purpose: preparing for war. Dr. Tae-young Kim hadn't slept in 36 hours. His laboratory in Seoul was now the most important place on Earth, where teams of scientists worked frantically to understand the alien technology recovered from the battlefield. The Vorthok energy weapons were incredibly advanced, but they followed principles that human physics could understand. "Look at this," he said to his exhausted team, pointing at a holographic display of alien circuitry. "They're using quantum field manipulation for their power source. It's brilliant, but it has a weakness. If we can disrupt the field harmonics, their weapons become useless." Meanwhile, factories in Germany were producing new armor plating based on alien hull designs. Japanese shipyards were building vessels that combined human engineering with captured Vorthok technology. The entire planet had become a massive research and development center, with every scientist, engineer, technician working toward the same goal. Admiral Mina Kim stood in the war room beneath the Swiss Alps, watching as tactical displays showed the mobilization effort. Every major city was now a military production center. Every university had become a weapons research facility. The speed of human adaptation was staggering even to those who had planned it. "Admiral, we're ready to broadcast," reported communications Officer Ji-won Park. The transmission would go out on all frequencies, ensuring that every alien species in the galaxy would receive the message. It was time to let the universe know that humanity was done being underestimated. "People of the galaxy," Admiral Minna began, her voice calm but carrying an undertone of steel. "The Vorthok Empire has made a critical mistake. They attacked Earth. Believing we were weak and primitive, they wanted to see what humans do when cornered. They're about to find out." The broadcast continued for several minutes, explaining humanity's position and warning other species to stay neutral. But it was the final words that would be remembered across the galaxy. "We didn't start this war, but we will finish it. When we do, the universe will understand that humanity fights not just to survive, but to win." On the Vorthok flagship, Intelligence Officer Kethro was monitoring human communications with growing concern. Unlike other species they had conquered, the humans weren't begging for mercy or trying to negotiate. Instead, their transmissions showed something that disturbed him deeply: excitement. "Sir, you need to hear this," he reported to Commander Thexfin. He played intercepted communications from human military units. Instead of fear or desperation, the soldiers were talking about the challenge ahead with what could only be described as enthusiasm. "They're not afraid," Cathrell explained. "They're actually looking forward to the fight. Our xenopsychologists have never encountered anything like this. Most species avoid conflict when possible. Humans seem to thrive on it." "People of the galaxy," Admiral Mina began, her voice calm but carrying an undertone of steel. "Empire has made a critical mistake. They attacked Earth believing we were weak and primitive. They wanted to see what humans do when cornered. They're about to find out." The broadcast continued for several minutes, explaining humanity's position and warning other species to stay neutral. But it was the final words that would be remembered across the galaxy. "We didn't start this war, but we will finish it. When we do, the universe will understand that humanity fights not just to survive, but to win." On the Vorthok flagship, Intelligence Officer Kethro was monitoring human communications with growing concern. Unlike other species they had conquered, the humans weren't begging for mercy or trying to negotiate. Instead, their transmissions showed something that disturbed him deeply: excitement. "Sir, you need to hear this," he reported to Commander Thexfin. He played intercepted communications from human military units. Instead of fear or desperation, the soldiers were talking about the challenge ahead with what could only be described as enthusiasm. They're not afraid, Cathrell explained. They're actually looking forward to the fight. Our xenopsychologists have never encountered anything like this. Most species avoid conflict when possible. Humans seem to thrive on it. Dr. Velinari, the fleet's chief xenopsychologist, had been studying human behavior patterns for days. Report was troubling, Commander. I believe we have fundamentally misunderstood this species. They don't just fight to survive, they fight to test themselves. This war isn't a disaster for them, it's an opportunity. The intercepts revealed human military personnel discussing battle tactics with the same enthusiasm others might reserve for sports. They were sharing ideas, improving strategies, and actually volunteering for dangerous missions. It was as if the entire species had been waiting for this moment. They're treating this like a game, reported another analyst. But a game they absolutely intend to win. As the days passed, the Vorthok leadership began to realize they had made a terrible miscalculation. They had expected to fight a desperate, frightened species trying to avoid extinction. Instead, they were facing a species that seemed to have been preparing for this war their entire existence. The human war machine was awakening. And the galaxy would never be the same. The Vorthok fleet had regrouped near Jupiter's orbit, confident that their superior technology would easily handle whatever the humans threw at them next. Commander Thexvin studied the tactical displays, watching for any sign of approaching Earth vessels. His sensors showed nothing but the usual background radiation from the gas giant's massive electromagnetic field. Sir, we're detecting some unusual energy signatures, reported his tactical officer. But they're coming from inside Jupiter's radiation belt. Nothing could survive in there. Thexvin dismissed the report with a wave of his hand. Impossible. Oh, that radiation would fry any ship's electronics within minutes. It's probably just interference from the planet's magnetic field. He couldn't have been more wrong. Hidden in the deadly radiation shadow of Jupiter, dozens of human vessels had been waiting patiently. Their hulls were scorched and blackened from the intense energy bombardment, but they were still functional. Human engineers had designed these ships specifically to operate in conditions that would destroy any other spacecraft. Commander, Ji-Hoon Choi sat in the command chair of what had once been a simple asteroid mining vessel. The ship's hull was pitted and scarred, its original white paint burned away by radiation exposure. But the engines still worked, the weapon systems were operational, and most importantly, the crew was ready to fight. All units, this is mining. Ship 7, he transmitted to his fleet. Target the enemy dreadnought. Remember your training, and remember what they did to our home. His ship, along with 30 others, burst from Jupiter's radiation belt like missiles, fired from a cosmic cannon, the Vorthok sensors, still struggling to track them through the electromagnetic interference. Barely detected the attack until it was too late. All units, execute Protocol Omega, Ji-Hoon commanded, his voice steady despite what he was about to do. Around him, his crew worked frantically at their stations, preparing for the ultimate sacrifice. Protocol Omega was humanity's most desperate tactic, a deliberate reactor overload that would turn their ship into a massive bomb. Sir, are you sure about this? Asked his engineer, young Corporal Minho Kim. Ji-Hoon looked at his crew, these brave men and women who had volunteered for a mission they knew they wouldn't survive. Sometimes the only way to win is to show the enemy that humans will sacrifice everything to protect what we love. The mining ship's reactor began to overload, its safety systems deliberately disabled. Ji-Hoon guided his vessel directly toward the enemy dreadnought, dodging plasma blasts and missile strikes, when his ship finally impacted the alien vessel. The explosion was visible from Earth, a brief, brilliant star that marked the sacrifice of 43 human lives. But their sacrifice wasn't in vain. The explosion tore a massive hole in the Vorthok formation, allowing the rest of the human fleet to pour through. What followed was unlike any battle the galaxy had ever seen. While the space battle raged above, another kind of warfare was happening inside the alien ships themselves. Sergeant Yoon-Young Park led her boarding team through the corridors of a captured Vorthok cruiser, their magnetic boots clanking against the metal floor. Her team carried weapons that looked primitive compared to the aliens' energy rifles. Simple, projectile weapons that fired metal bullets. "Remember, aim for their center mass," she instructed her squad. "These rounds will punch through their personal shields like they're made of paper." The first group of Orthodox soldiers they encountered learned this lesson the hard way. Their personal energy shields, designed to deflect plasma bolts and laser beams, were completely useless against old-fashioned bullets traveling at supersonic speeds. The metal projectiles passed through the energy barriers as if they didn't exist. "How is this possible?" One dying Vorthok warrior gasped as Sergeant Park's team secured the corridor. "Our shields are impenetrable." "Only against energy weapons," Park replied, reloading her rifle. "You've never planned for someone crazy enough to still use kinetic projectiles." Back on the Vorthok flagship, Commander Thexvin was receiving reports that made no sense. His most advanced warships were being destroyed by converted mining equipment. His elite soldiers were being defeated by warriors using primitive projectile weapons. Everything the Vorthok Empire knew about warfare was being turned upside down. "Are they doing this?" he demanded from his tactical officer. "Our shields should be impenetrable. Our weapons should tear through their hulls like tissue." "Sir, they're not fighting like any species we've encountered," the officer replied nervously. "They're using simple metal projectiles fired at extreme velocities. Our energy shields were designed to deflect plasma and laser weapons, not solid. Objects moving at these speeds ended their tactics," added another officer. "They're using suicide attacks, ramming maneuvers, and weapons improvised from industrial equipment. It's completely unpredictable." Dexvin stared at the tactical display, watching his supposedly superior fleet being systematically destroyed by a species that shouldn't have been able to threaten them. For the first time in his military career, he felt something he had never experienced before: fear. The humans weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. And they were willing to use any method necessary to achieve victory. Admiral Yethril stared at the holographic display in disbelief, reading the same report for the third time. The impossible had happened. After 3 months of what should have been a simple conquest, the Vorthok Empire was retreating. It's not regrouping, not adjusting strategy, actually retreating from a species they had dismissed as primitives. "This can't be accurate," he muttered to his aide. "Check the data again. Human forces cannot have pushed beyond their solar system. They barely had interplanetary travel when we arrived." But the reports kept coming in, each one more disturbing than the last. Human fleets had not only defended their home system, but had gone on the offensive. They were attacking Vorthok positions throughout the local star cluster, using technology that seemed to advance daily. The species that had been using chemical rockets just months ago was now fielding vessels that could match Vorthok cruisers in combat. The worst news came from Proxima Centauri, where the Vorthok had established their forward command base. The facility had been built inside an asteroid field, hidden from detection and protected by the most advanced shields in the Empire. It should have been impregnable. Captain Donghan Kim approached the Vorthok base aboard his flagship, a vessel that had been built in the shipyards of Mars using captured alien technology. His crew had trained for this moment, studying every weakness in enemy defenses, every flaw in their tactical doctrine. "All ships, this is Fleet Command," he announced over the communication system. "Today we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten Earth and her children. Weapons free. Begin the assault." What followed was unlike anything the galaxy had witnessed. Instead of attacking the base directly, the human fleet positioned itself around Proxima Centauri's star. Using gravitational manipulation devices that their scientists had developed, they began to disturb the star's magnetic field. "Sir, what are they doing?" asked Lieutenant Taeho Lee from the weapons station. "They're not firing on the base. They're pointing their devices at the star itself." "Watch and learn," Captain Dong Heen replied with a grim smile. "Today we teach the galaxy that humans don't just use weapons. We make the universe itself our weapon." The gravitational manipulators worked in perfect coordination, creating massive disturbances in the star's corona. Within minutes, enormous solar flares began erupting from Proxima Centauri's surface, directed with surgical precision toward the Vorthok base. The enemy's shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and projectiles, were completely useless against. The raw power of a star. Possible, whispered Commander Veltar from the dying Vorthok base. They're using the star itself as a weapon. How can any species even conceive of such a thing? The solar flares, each one containing more energy than 1,000 nuclear bombs, struck the Vorthok positions with devastating effect. Ships that had survived countless battles were vaporized instantly. The asteroid base, built to withstand any conventional assault, was reduced to molten slag in seconds. All units, fall back. Commander Veltar screamed into his communicator before his ship was consumed by stellar fire. The humans have weaponized the star. They're using stellar phenomena as weapons. The few Vorthok vessels that escaped the inferno carried a message that would spread terror throughout the Empire. These humans didn't just adapt to their environment, they made it part of their arsenal. They had turned a star into a weapon, something that no other species in galactic history had ever attempted. Lieutenant Dodgen Park watched the retreat from her stealth reconnaissance ship, hidden among the outer planets of the system. Her vessel was one of humanity's newest designs, equipped with cloaking technology that made it invisible to Vorthok sensors. She had been monitoring enemy communications throughout the battle, and what she heard filled her with a mixture of pride and concern. Admiral. Mina, this is Recon 7, she reported back to Earth Command. The Vorthok fleet is in full retreat. They're falling back to their core systems, and their communications are filled with panic. They're not just defeated, they're terrified. The intercepted messages painted a picture of an alien military force that had completely lost confidence in their ability to fight humans. Vorthok commanders were describing humans as the star killers and the species that makes the universe bleed. Some were even suggesting that humanity might be connected to the mysterious ancient species that had left artifacts throughout the galaxy. They're calling us unnatural, Lieutenant, Dudgeon continued. They think we're some kind of cosmic horror that shouldn't exist. Admiral, they're not just retreating, they're running. Back on Earth, the news of the victory at Proxima Centauri was met with celebration, but also with sobering realization. Humanity had proven they could not only defend their home, but take the war to the enemy. They had shown the galaxy that humans could turn the very forces of nature into weapons, but this was just the beginning. The Vorthok Empire still controlled. Dozens of star systems and their full military might hadn't been unleashed yet. The real test of human determination was still to come. The tide had turned. But the war was far from over. The news of humanity's victory at Proxima Centauri spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. On the water world of Altair, Prime, the Republic's High Council, gathered in emergency session. Their aquatic forms rippling with anxiety as they watched the battle recordings. The species that had been dismissed as primitive barbarians had just turned a star into a weapon. This changes everything, declared Chancellor Mirthla, her voice creating bubbles in the council chamber's water. The Vorthok Empire has never retreated from any species. Never. And now they're running from these humans like prey fleeing a predator. Similar scenes played out across dozens of civilizations. The Centauri Federation's crystal-based leaders held their own emergency meetings, their forms glowing with alarm. The vegan collective's hive mind buzzed with nervous energy as they processed the implications. Every advanced species in the galaxy was asking the same question. If the mighty Vorthok Empire couldn't defeat humanity, what did that mean for the rest of them? Ambassador Krelvin of the Altarian Republic had been chosen for the most delicate mission in his people's history. His ship approached Earth's outer defenses under a flag of neutrality, broadcasting peaceful intentions on all frequencies. He had specifically requested this meeting to ensure his people would not become humanity's next target. The meeting took place aboard a neutral space station in the asteroid belt. With both sides maintaining their distance, President Sujin Park arrived with a small diplomatic team, while Krelvin came alone, his aquatic life support suit making him appear even more nervous than he already was. President Park Krelvin began, his translated voice carrying an obvious tremor. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I want to assure you that the Altarian Republic has no hostile intentions toward Earth or its people. President Park studied the alien ambassador with calm eyes. Then why are you here, Ambassador? Your people have never contacted us before. Because, Krelvin replied, his suit's water bubbling more rapidly, we want to make absolutely certain that we remain uninvolved in your conflict with the Vorthok. We seek no alliance with either side, simply wish to continue our peaceful existence. The unspoken message was clear. Please don't destroy us. The Altarian Republic, along with dozens of other civilizations, had watched humanity's military capabilities with growing terror. They had seen a species that could weaponize stars, turn industrial equipment into instruments of war, and fight with a creativity that defied all known military doctrine. What do you want from us? President? Park asked directly. Krelvin's response came quickly, almost desperately. Nothing. We want nothing from you. We simply wish to ensure we remain uninvolved in your conflict with the Vorthok. Perhaps we could establish a non-aggression pact, or trade agreements. Anything to show that we are not your enemies? Meanwhile, deep in space, Commander Sang-Woo Lee operated from one of humanity's most advanced intelligence vessels. His ship was invisible to most sensors, equipped with technology that allowed him to intercept communications across multiple star systems. What he was hearing from the Vorthok Empire painted a picture of an alien military in complete collapse. Admiral, you need to hear this, he transmitted to Admiral Mina Kim on Earth. I've been monitoring Vorthok military communications for the past week. Their high command is in complete panic. He played the intercepted messages through the secure channel. Vorthok commanders were describing humans in terms that seemed more appropriate for describing cosmic horrors than a military enemy. They spoke of the death species and the star killers with a fear that went beyond mere tactical concern. They're not just afraid of our weapons, Commander Sang-Woo explained. They're afraid of us. They're calling us unnatural, saying that no species should be able to fight the way we do. Their entire military doctrine is collapsing because we don't follow their rules. The intercepted communications revealed that Vorthok generals were arguing among themselves about whether to continue the war or sue for peace. Some were even suggesting that humanity might be connected to the ancient species that had left mysterious artifacts throughout the galaxy, being so advanced that they had simply vanished from known space. Sir, listen to this one, Sung-Woo continued, playing another message. A Vorthok field marshal is telling his superiors that humans don't just use their environment, they reshape it to serve their purposes. He's recommending full withdrawal from human space. The galaxy was slowly realizing that humanity's supposed primitiveness had been carefully cultivated camouflage. While other species had focused on achieving peace and prosperity, humans had quietly perfected something that most civilizations had forgotten how to do: wage total war. The Vorthok Empire had expected to fight a frightened, desperate species, trying to avoid extinction. Instead, they had encountered a species that seemed to have been preparing for this exact moment for their entire evolutionary history. Humans didn't just adapt to survive, they adapted to dominate. They're calling us the nightmare species, Commander Sang-Woo reported. Admiral, I don't think the Vorthok are going to recover from this. Their entire civilization is built around military superiority, and we've proven that superiority is an illusion. The shockwaves from humanity's victories were reshaping galactic politics. Species that had never contacted Earth were suddenly desperate to establish diplomatic relations. The balance of power that had existed for millennia was crumbling. Everyone wanted to be on the winning side. The galaxy was learning to fear humanity. That fear was about to change everything. The attack began at exactly 0300 hours, Galactic Standard Time, across 3 different star systems simultaneously. In the depths of space, dozens of Vorthok vessels that had been reported as destroyed weeks earlier suddenly came back to life. But the beings piloting them were no longer Vorthok. They were human special forces who had spent months learning to operate captured alien technology. Major Sung-Ho Park stood on the bridge of what had once been a Vorthok destroyer, watching as his team prepared for the most audacious military operation in human history. His soldiers wore modified Vorthok armor and carried weapons that looked alien, but had been rebuilt with human improvements. To any observer, they would appear to be a standard Vorthok patrol returning from a routine mission. Listen up, everyone. He addressed his team through the communication system. We've trained for this moment for 3 months. We know their language, their customs, and their weaknesses. But remember, we're not here to massacre civilians. We're here to end this war by destroying their ability to fight. The infiltration was flawless. Human teams slipped past Vorthok defenses by using the enemy's own identification codes and following their standard patrol routes. The aliens never suspected that they're supposedly primitive. Enemies had not only captured their vessels, but had learned to operate them better than the original crews. On the industrial world of Kethmoran, Lieutenant Colonel Jinwoo Park led his team through the colony's main military complex. They moved like ghosts through corridors they had studied and captured blueprints, avoiding civilian areas and focusing solely on weapons manufacturing facilities. When Vorthok guards challenged them, the humans responded in perfect alien language, their voices disguised by vocal modulators. Production Facility 7 is secured, Jinwoo reported back to Major Kung Ho. Beginning demolition charges placement. No civilian casualties. The beauty of Operation Nemesis wasn't just its scope, it was its precision. While the Vorthok Empire had relied on overwhelming force and intimidation, humanity had chosen surgical strikes that would cripple enemy war production without harming innocent lives. It was a distinction that would have enormous consequences for how the galaxy viewed the conflict, Captain. Haewon Kim commanded the space-based portion of the assault. Leading a squadron of modified human fighters against the Vorthok fleet, defending the Velinary system. Her ships looked like standard Earth interceptors, but they had been equipped with weapons that defied everything the aliens knew about human technology. All units, engage at will, she commanded, as her squadron dropped out of hyperspace.
Show.
Then what happens when you give human engineers 3 months to improve on alien technology? The plasma cannons mounted on her fighter were based on captured Vorthok designs, but human modifications had made them devastatingly effective. Where the original alien weapons had been powerful but slow to recharge, the human versions fired continuously, where Vorthok shields had been designed to deflect their own plasma technology. These modified weapons cut through enemy defenses like they were made of paper. Impossible, gasped the Vorthok squadron leader as his shields collapsed. Under the assault, those are our own weapons. How are they penetrating our defenses? The answer was simple but terrifying. Human engineers didn't just copy alien technology, they improved it. Every captured weapon had been disassembled, studied, and rebuilt to be more efficient, more powerful, and more deadly than the original. The students had become better than their teachers. But the most disturbing discovery came when Supreme Commander Yethral's intelligence team finally cracked some captured human data files. What they found sent shockwaves through the entire Vorthok High Command. The files contained detailed biological and psychological profiles of every Vorthok subspecies, including weaknesses that even the aliens themselves didn't fully understand. This is impossible, Yethral whispered as he read through the data. They have genetic analysis of our warrior caste, psychological profiles of our command structure, even detailed studies of our pain responses and fear triggers. How could they have gathered this information? Truth was even more frightening. Humanity had been studying the Vorthok Empire from the moment first contact was made. Every diplomatic transmission, every battle, every captured soldier had provided data that human scientists had analyzed with ruthless efficiency. They had turned the act of war itself into a research project. "Sir, look at this section," reported Intelligence Officer Kethral, his voice shaking. "They've designed specific weapons for each of our subspecies. Sonic disruptors target our hearing frequency. The neural scramblers are calibrated to our brain patterns. They've even developed chemical agents that affect our specific biology." Supreme. Commander Yethral realized with growing horror that humanity hadn't just been fighting a war. They had been conducting a systematic study of how to defeat his people. Every battle had been a field test, every engagement a chance to gather more data. The humans had turned warfare into a science. "They know our weaknesses better than we do," he reported to the High Council during an emergency session. "They've designed weapons specifically to counter our natural advantages. This isn't just warfare, it's systematic elimination." The High Council fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't fighting a primitive species that had gotten lucky. They were fighting a species that had studied them like laboratory specimens and had designed their defeat with scientific precision, for the first time in their empire's history. The Vorthok understood what it meant to be hunted by a superior predator. The Vorthok High Council gathered in their deepest bunker, surrounded by walls of pure energy that had protected their leaders for 1,000 years. Supreme Commander Yethril looked around the table at faces filled with desperation. Their empire, which had conquered 17 star systems without serious opposition, was crumbling before a species they had dismissed as primitive just months ago. "We have only one option left," declared Elder Kethmorin, his ancient voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "We must activate the Star Killer." The chamber fell silent. The Star Killer was a weapon from the darkest period of their history, built during their war with the mysterious ancients eons ago. It was designed to destabilize stars, turning them into supernovas that would destroy entire solar systems. Had never been used because the weapon was considered too dangerous even for the Vorthok. "The weapon hasn't been tested in 3,000 years, warned Chief Engineer Velinari. "We don't even know if it still functions. Then we test it on Earth's." Son Yethril replied grimly. "If we cannot defeat these humans conventionally, we will destroy their entire system. Let the galaxy see what happens to those who defy us." The ancient weapon was housed in a facility hidden in the asteroid belt of the Vorthok home system. Looked like a massive crystal formation. But within its structure lay technology that could manipulate the fundamental forces holding stars together. When activated, it would send a beam of exotic particles across space, disrupting the nuclear fusion at the heart of Earth's sun. But the Vorthok had forgotten something crucial. Humans had been watching them for months. Captain In-Ho Kim sat in his intelligence vessel, hidden among the outer comets of the Vorthok home system. His ship was equipped with the most advanced sensors humanity had ever built, devices that could detect energy signatures from across a star system. When the Star Killer began its activation sequence, every alarm on his ship started screaming. "Command. This is Deep Eyes 7, he transmitted on an encrypted channel. "The Vorthok are activating some kind of massive weapon. Readings are off the charts. See, I'm reading exotic particle emissions that match theoretical models for stellar manipulation." The transmission reached Earth within minutes thanks to humanity's quantum communication network. Admiral Menakim was in the middle of a strategy meeting when the alert came through. The implications hit her immediately. "They're trying to destroy our star," she announced to the assembled commanders. "But we've been tracking their movements. We know where they are, and we know where their weapon is located." The response was swift and decisive. Operation Ragnarok had been planned for months as humanity's ultimate contingency plan. If the Vorthok Empire ever threatened Earth's existence, humanity would unleash every weapon, and simultaneously across the entire enemy civilization. Dr. Tae-Young Kim had been working on the project's most secret, its weapon and laboratories buried beneath the Swiss Alps. The quantum disruptors were based on theoretical physics that pushed the boundaries of human understanding. These devices could tear apart matter at the subatomic level, causing atoms themselves to simply cease to exist. "Admiral, the weapons are ready," he reported from his lab. "But I must warn you, once we use these, there's no going back. Empire will be completely destroyed." Admiral Menakim stood on the bridge of humanity's most advanced battleship, looking out at the stars that had become a battlefield. Around her, officers from every nation on Earth worked together with the efficiency that had made humanity so dangerous. The decision she was about to make would determine the fate of two civilizations. "The Vorthok chose to escalate this war to the point of attempted genocide," she said quietly. "They've forced our hand. All units, execute final protocols. End this war." The attack began simultaneously across dozens of star systems. Human fleets that had been positioned throughout Vorthok space suddenly revealed themselves, their ships equipped with weapons that defied everything the aliens understood about physics. The quantum disruptors didn't just destroy enemy vessels. They made them disappear entirely, their atoms scattered across space. On the fortress world of Kethmorin, Vorthok military commanders watched in horror as their orbital defense platform simply vanished. There was no explosion, no debris field. The weapons were simply gone, as if they had never existed. "What are they using?" screamed Commander Veltar from his command center. "Our shields aren't even registering impacts." The answer came from his science officer, her voice filled with terror. "Sir, they're using some kind of quantum weapon. It's dissolving matter at the atomic level. Our shields can't defend against something that destroys the very atoms they're made of." The Star Killer weapon, humanity's greatest threat, was among the first targets destroyed. Captain In-ho Kim watched from his hidden position as the ancient crystal structure simply faded away, its exotic particles dispersing harmlessly into space. "Target eliminated," he reported. "Earth's sun is safe." Within 6 hours, the Vorthok Empire's military infrastructure had collapsed completely. Their fleets were gone, their weapons were destroyed, and their fortress worlds lay defenseless. The war was over, decided by weapons that turned the very building blocks of matter into humanity's allies. The galaxy would never forget the day that humans proved they could unmake reality itself. The neutral world of Kepler 4.4 to be had been chosen, specifically because no major power claimed it. The planet's surface was mostly ocean with scattered islands, making it perfect for a meeting where no one could claim home field advantage. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered to witness what many expected would be the complete destruction of the Vorthok Empire. Supreme Commander Yethrail walked slowly toward the ceremonial platform, his once proud uniform now bearing the marks of defeat. His entire civilization lay in ruins, their fleets destroyed, their weapons useless against humanity's terrifying quantum technology. He expected to sign his people's death warrant, to watch as the humans demanded total surrender and the enslavement of his species. Behind him walked the representatives of dozens of other civilizations, all watching nervously as history was about to be made. The Altarian Republic's delegation whispered among themselves, while the Centauri Federation's crystal-based ambassadors glowed with anxiety. Everyone knew that humanity now possessed the power to reshape the galaxy however they chose. Mina Kim stood at the center of the platform, flanked by President Sujin Park and other human leaders. She looked calm and confident, showing no signs of the exhaustion that came from months of the most brutal warfare the galaxy had ever seen. When she began to speak, her words would be remembered for generations. "Supreme Commander Yethrail," she began, her voice carrying clearly across the assembled crowd. "Your empire attacked Earth, believing we were weak and primitive. You were wrong. We have proven that humanity can defend itself against any threat." Yethrail braced himself for the demands he knew were coming. Total surrender, massive tribute, payments, the reduction of his people to a slave species. It was what the Vorthok Empire would have demanded if their positions were reversed. Instead, Admiral Mina's next words shocked everyone present. "We offer reconstruction aid, technology sharing, and full integration into a new galactic community," she announced. "You attacked us, but we won't destroy you. We're here to build something better." The silence that followed was absolute. Ambassador Krelvin of the Altarian Republic turned to his aide, his aquatic suit bubbling with disbelief. "They could have wiped out the entire Vorthok species," he whispered. "Their quantum weapons could have eliminated every Vorthok world in hours. Instead, they're offering to help them rebuild." The terms that Admiral Mina presented were unlike anything in galactic history. Yes, the Vorthok Empire would be dismantled as a military power. Their war fleets would be destroyed and their weapons technology shared with a galactic peacekeeping force. But their people would be fed, their damaged worlds would be repaired, and they would be given a place in the new order that humanity was proposing. "We're not interested in ruling through fear," explained Dr. Tae-young Kim, addressing the scientific aspects of the agreement. "We'll share our technology, including medical advances that can extend Vorthok lifespans by centuries. In return, we ask only that you contribute your knowledge to the betterment of all species." President Sujin Park took the podium next her, words directed not just at the Vorthok but at every species watching. "You learned today that humans can wage total war when our survival is threatened. Now learn that we can also forge lasting peace when that threat is removed." The galaxy was witnessing something unprecedented. Throughout history, victorious species had either enslaved or destroyed their enemies. The strong dominated the weak, and mercy was seen as a sign of weakness. But humanity was proving that true strength meant being able to choose restraint even when you possessed overwhelming power. This new galactic community will be built on cooperation, not conquest, President Park continued. Every species will have a voice, every civilization will contribute their unique strengths, and no one will be forced to live in fear of their neighbors. The Vorthok delegation was stunned. Commander Velta, who had expected to be executed for his war crimes, found himself being offered a position in the new Galactic Defense Force. Scientists who had designed weapons of mass destruction were invited to work on projects that would improve life for billions of beings across the galaxy. Why? Supreme Commander Yethrel finally asked, his voice barely audible. Why show mercy to those who tried to destroy you? Admiral Mina Kim looked at him with something that might have been compassion, because we've learned that the universe is vast and dangerous enough without us making it worse. You were our enemies, but you don't have to remain our enemies. 6 months later, Captain Hyenwoo Park stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, the new headquarters of the Galactic Cooperative Council. Below him, construction crews, made up of humans, Vorthok, Altarians, and dozens of other species, worked together on expansion projects. Former enemies shared meals in the station's common areas, while their children played together in schools that taught the history and culture of every member species. The war had ended, but humanity's real work was just beginning. They had proven they could fight, but now they had to prove they could lead. The galaxy was watching, and for the first time in cosmic history, they were watching with hope instead of fear. The age of human dominance had begun, but it would be remembered not for conquest, but for the peace that followed.